Hey, Dr. Ledet.
Hey, how you doing, man? How you doing? How you doing?
Pretty good.
You hear
Very
me well?
grateful for you taking some time out of your busy schedule to come on my little known youth podcast. Really appreciate the love and the humility, Doctor.
Oh man, it's not little known. It's just not known big yet.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir. So,
I'm gonna put on this ring light. I'm not sure if you give people the video too, but
oh yes.
okay.
Thank
So
you.
let
Thank
me.
you.
I'm,
Thank
I'm
you.
gonna put this ring light on real quick because I know it's dark in here, but I just got home. My roommate in here studying, and I was actually studying somewhere else because I like to study in really noisy places, but
Oh.
he's smart enough to study at home. He's like way smarter than me. You're like light years ahead of me. He like way smarter than me. That's my dog. My dog Josh Bees, vegetarian who eats Ronnie's.
Oh, vegetarian. Oh, okay.
Nah, he a vegetarian who eats Ronnie's boudin. So he only a vegetarian until you give him some Louisiana Cajun food in front of him.
Ah,
He's not a
okay.
vegetarian
Okay.
anymore. It changed your life, dog. All right, let's see what we got here.
I don't really detect much of a Louisiana accent from you, though.
Man, I done traveled the world, but that's the problem.
Ah.
I done been around the world and got a couple of accents, but it's all good. I'm Louisiana born and bred. I'm Louisiana through and through.
Oh,
Trust me.
well, okay.
I wouldn't come back here from New York if I wasn't. I promise you that much. All right, how can you hear me well?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
All right, let's get this party started.
Righty. To all the viewers, local viewers, and also we got our viewers out in Accra, Ghana, Kumasi, Ghana, Kampala, Uganda, Nairobi, Kenya, and Juba, South Sudan. I always forget to give them a shout out, so I'm gonna give them a shout out now before I forget. Want to welcome Dr. RussellLedet to the Heavy Brand Podcast, Detroit's premier youth podcast.
Thank you for having me on, man. I really appreciate it. As you've heard, youth is kind of where my passion lies, specifically the youth that look like me. So every opportunity, every turn I get to inspire them, I will.
Sir. So now, before we get started, I'll give a little introduction to each guest. So my name is Gerard Namako. I'm originally from Ghana, West Africa, and been working with youth, at-risk youth, as far as my 9 to 5 since 2012. And I started this podcast only 3 months ago while we were in lockdown or quarantine. I wanted to give the young people a platform where they could see real life people that went through struggles, motivational stories, things that are more real than just watching Netflix or Redbox, real life people that they can hear from and get motivated and inspired and informed. So that's kind of how my youth podcast came to be. Now, Dr. Russell, so tell us about your Louisiana roots as far as growing up. You from Baton Rouge or from a different city?
No, I'm from LakeCharles, Louisiana. I'm not from Baton Rouge. So I'm from. I know people got that off that Good Morning America talk because they didn't know what they was talking about. But now I'm originally from Lake Charles, Louisiana. I grew up in a little neighborhood called Car Shop. And I think it's it's not a bad thing that I say this. And sometimes people are like, why'd you have to say that? But because I think it's important to tell the truth. I grew up poor. I grew up in poverty. My mama ain't had much. My mama was a single mom of 2 kids. She was doing the best she could, you know, but I mean, it had gotten so bad at one point to where we were digging in the dumpster behind the Sam's Club for dinner. And this is when we were in middle school and high school. So I'm never afraid to tell people that, because I need for people to understand that they still got kids living like that right now. And it's important that that message get out there, because hopefully we can do something about it. You know, and so I grew up in LakeCharles, Louisiana. I went to, you know, Oak Park High School, Oak Park Middle School, and LakeCharles Boston High School, a high school that's now actually closed due to low performance, and kind of the fact that it was a black high school, and it was just like, what's the big deal with closing a black high school? Now in hindsight, they probably shouldn't have did that, but it's all good, you know. And I left, so when I was 17 years old. I didn't really know how to apply for college. My mama didn't know how to apply for college. And she was like, I don't know what you're gonna do, but you gotta figure something out. You about to graduate high school. So, you know, I thought about it and I was like, man, the military is an option. You know, so I decided to go to the United States Navy. I had scored really well on the ASVAB exam, and I had gotten into intelligence. But before I could actually get to cryptology school, I ended up in boot camp being selected for the United States Navy Ceremonial Guard, which is in Washington D.C. The Marines have one called Eighth and I. They had the Marine Corps Ceremonial Guard. They had the Air Force, the Army, the Navy, and the Coast Guard. So, you know, I did that for 2 years. It was my first encounter with like really successful people. You know, you meet heads of states and presidents and all these other people. And I used to always ask them, like, how do you be successful? And they would always tell me, like, you know, you just ask for forgiveness. You never ask for permission. So I kind of took that to heart and started doing like, I don't know, man. I guess I kind of just ran with it. I went to cryptology school. By this point, my wife and I had been married. So I think we got married in 2014. No, 2005. Yeah, oh.
For young people that don't know what cryptology is, break that down for them.
Yeah, man. So cryptology is basically utilizing signals to understand how other, you know, entities, whether they're enemies or just other, you know, other entities in the military are operating from a communication standpoint. And so, you know, obviously you want to gain some information, but you also, you know, are just trying to understand the world around you. And so that's essentially, you know, what I used to do. Hopefully that's pretty clear. And so, you know, by this point I was married. I went to cryptology school down in Pensacola, Florida, which is in it's in West Florida, so it's really close to Mississippi and Alabama. Mainly Alabama. It's like real close to the border of Alabama. And then that was the first time my wife and I were living together. And I always bring that up because, you know, in the beginning of a marriage, it's really tough because you're trying to learn a person, the person's trying to learn you, right? So, and then you in cryptology school, and that's really difficult too. So it just made for a really challenging environment. But nevertheless, we finished there. We moved to Mayport, Florida, which is in Jacksonville. And so we went from West Florida to northeast Florida, up by Jacksonville, which is northeast Florida, right on the Atlantic Ocean. And I was on a ship there, and then we just deployed a lot off of that ship. You know, it was a small boy, so you could get small boys in and out in no time. So, you know, they're gonna send them out on a regular basis as opposed to some of the bigger ships. So, you know, as I was finishing that up, my wife looked at me and she was like, "We can't build a family like this." She's like, "You got to go figure out something else to do with your life because we can't build a family like this." So, of course, I was more committed to my wife than I was to the Navy. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I wasn't willing to lose my wife. So she convinced me that I was smart enough to go to college, which is kind of crazy because I always look back on it. And my wife and I have been together since we were in high school. And she used to tell me in high school, like, I don't understand how you sit in class with no books, no paper, no pen, and you can answer everything. She was like, you know the answer to everything. It's like, how? He was like, what are you doing? Studying at home? And I was like, nah, this stuff is like common sense. And she was like, this is not common sense, you know. But nevertheless, I ended up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana at Southern University, in HBCU, to get.
At the Jaguars?
Yeah, the Jaguars, brother. That was the Jaguars, man. And so, you know, for the listeners, for the kids, man, I want y'all to understand that, like, I went through a lot of iterations of life. And I never became impatient, and I never was like, oh, well, this is taking too long, or any of that, or man, that's going to be a really long time. It was like, is that the next thing that needs to get done? All right, let's go do it. You know, there's no point in paying attention to time. The time is going to pass whether you like it or not. And so the best thing you can do is utilize that time the best way you possibly can. You know, I always tell people time is not refundable, so spend it wisely. You're not going to get more of it. You got a finite amount of time on earth. And, you know, when you spend that time, you want to get a return on investment. So we came down to Baton Rouge, so I was off active duty and I was in the reserves. And so the reserves don't pay that well. So I had to get a job. And I got a job as a security guard at that hospital that everyone's talking about. I think Baton Rouge General has more publicity right now than they probably ever had in their life. Because people around the world know about Baton Rouge General Hospital now. You know, also I was going to undergrad, and I thought I was actually going to undergrad for social work. You know, I grew up poor, and the social workers used to give us out food stamps. So I was like, at least they trying to help out the community. I was like, maybe I should do that. But I was sitting in a chemistry class, and you know, everybody in college has to take these science classes. I was taking this chemistry class, and I was sitting there like answering all these balancing equations and stuff like that. And it was just coming to me like easy. Like it was like, this is so simple, you know. And I had memorized the entire periodic table in like a couple of days. The teacher pulled me to the side after one class. She was like, "What are you majoring in?" And I was like, "Oh, I think I'm gonna go into social work." And she was like, "Oh, you're not?"
You sure?
She was like, "I'm not saying we don't need social workers, but I think you could do something else too." And she was like, I was like, "What do you think I should do?" And she was like, "You should go into science because I think you'll be really good at it." So she put me in touch with this guy named Dr. Wesley Gray, who's he's been a mentor of mine for a really long time, and I could call him about anything at any time. He just gave me sound advice. And you know, he helped me to understand that I was capable of going into science. So of course, being the overachiever that I am, I majored in chemistry and biology because I was like, it's hard to understand biology when you don't know chemistry. Chemistry is the basis for biology. Everything builds off of understanding how molecules behave, right? So, but I didn't go as deep as physics, which is really the basis of everything. And so I majored in chemistry and biology, and I got involved in some research and started doing some really cool research. I was designing molecules for earlier detection of colorectal cancer at Louisiana State University. And then I got an opportunity to do some research at what's the name of this institution? Oh yeah, Merck Pharmaceuticals, which is a Fortune 500 company up in New York. I mean, I'm sorry, not New York, in Boston, right down the street from Harvard Medical School. And so, you know, at this point, I was like, dang, man, I'm doing research at a Fortune 500 company. I think I might be capable of doing some stuff. And I met this dean from NYU School of Medicine, and he was like, I think you could get a PhD. I was like, bro, you wowing right now. Like, you crazy. He was like, nah, you capable. I was like, who gonna take me? He was like, I'll take you. And I mean, if you think about it, for him, it was a come up because here it is, you had a student, in hindsight, here it is, you had a student who if I could get outside of myself and look at me and be like, bro, that dude is brilliant. If I could get him before he knows that he's brilliant, then it's gonna be a come up, right? But I think also if there's anything I could say about Dr. Joe Oppenheimer, he's genuine. Like he really was like, I see something in you.
You saw the potential in you, yeah.
Yeah, he saw the potential in me. And so he recruited me to come to NYU School of Medicine to get my PhD. I got in, my wife and I moved to New York. I started working on my PhD in molecular oncology and tumor immunology. And I did a lot of really cool stuff while I was up there. Got funded by some really big institutions, like the Howard Hughes Medical Institute and National Institutes of Health and the Ford Foundation. But as I was finishing my PhD, I just realized, like, man, I don't really know medicine. I just know research. And that really made me uneasy. Of course, I had this experience as a security guard, right? Which I'm sure we'll probably talk about at some point, this whole thing with being a security guard. But nevertheless, I thought, like, man, maybe I should become a doctor too. Like, I was already becoming one kind of doctor, but I could become a medical doctor. So I decided to apply to med school. I got 6 interviews. I got 6 acceptances. So I had to pick between these 6 schools. And I got a full ride offer from Tulane University. They was gonna pay for all of my medical school tuition, which is like,
they're right home. That's home. Well,
yeah, that was back home. But I think a full ride, I think it like equates to like, I don't know, $300,000-$400,000, somewhere in that range. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's like in the 300 to 4. It's at least 300 for sure.
Deep 6 figures. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So that was a big burden off my shoulders. Just not having to worry about that. But so I decided to come home because I got that full ride offer about an hour after my second daughter was born. So we had just had my daughter, and I got that email from Tulane letting me know, like, hey, you can come here on a full ride for free, which is why I opted to get my MBA, because I was like, I'm not paying for my MD. I might as well get an MBA. That's the only degree I had to pay for, because up until the point of I finished my PhD without ever taking out a loan.
Wow.
Yeah, I never took out a loan for my undergrad. Both of my undergrad degrees, my master's, my PhD, and my MD, I ain't paid for 5 degrees. I only had to pay for my MBA. I was like, bet, this is the best deal ever. Mm-hmm. So of course, I came here to Tulane, and now here I am. Of course, I'm making headlines everywhere over the stuff that I'm doing in my own life. But I mean, if you listen to it, I can see how people would pay attention to it. It's like incredible. It's like, dang, it's like an Energize button. You just keep going. But in actuality, that's probably true. I just like never thought about how long it would take. I was just like, it's a goal and it's in front of me. So I need to go get it done. And that's it. Like, it was just that simple. It wasn't like that complicated. It's like, it's a goal. It's in front of me. I'm going to go do it. And I'll figure out how to do it as I go. And that's kind of what got me here,
And I find that especially refreshing because, with our people, you hear about, starting from nothing and getting to something, usually like in sports or music. But I always knew that our people are capable of much more than entertainment. We're gifted in so many other things. No knock on athletics or music, but there's more to our people beyond just beyond music or entertainment. We have so many scholars that we need to tap into that more. That's why I want your story to be to be magnified and to be put out there. Yes, not to cut you off.
Yeah, absolutely, man, absolutely. So I came to Tulane with the intention of, there were a couple things that I wanted to do. One, I realized that, okay, Russell, you're starting to come into your own as like an adult. And it seems like you're starting to have this influence, and like people are listening to you, and you're starting to have this community that's like they starting to watch, they starting to pay attention, and they really are invigorated by what you're trying to do in your heart and the way that you're trying to get it done. And so remain humble, but also understanding like you have an opportunity to influence the culture and
Yes,
influence the next generation, you know. And so I didn't shy away from that. You know, my first year, I tried to influence the culture at Tulane by becoming the class president. I became the class president for my class, and I tried my very best. I tried to instill this organization called #ReachBack with a couple of my colleagues, Olayemi Alubuwale and Sydney Labat.
Syrian brother.
Yeah, exactly. And but it ain't really paying out, mainly because, you know, it was an unpopular thing to try to do. You know, I was trying to get a whole bunch of minority doctors to come back and mentor a bunch of minority students who were starting med school, and some people didn't like that idea. So of course they kind of fought tooth and nail to make sure that I went on ahead and figured out something else to do with my free time, which I didn't have a problem with, obviously, because you know, I'm in my third year now, and I think we doing all right. I think we got a lot on our plate, and I think we're much more effective at what we're doing too. So, you know, my second year, I kind of, you know, kind of started thinking about how do I make influence the culture outside of the institution. I was like, I gotta do something that's not Tulane based.
Okay.
You know, I gotta do something that, you kind of gotta branch out. And so that's when the 15 white coats thing happened. Obviously the 15 white coats thing has gotten a lot of attention. It was on Good Morning America this morning. Such a grateful moment, man. It was just like, that was a heavy moment for me, man. I cried a lot. Because this journey has been so difficult. But it's been fun, you know. But yeah, so we did the 15 white coats thing, and then, you know, this pandemic hit and that kind of stuff, and finally we started rotation in the hospital. We started rotations in the hospital, and rotations are, so in medical school, your first 2 years are like classwork. It's like strictly classwork. And then your third year is when you start to hit the wards in the hospital.
Is that the residency or?
Nah. Residency comes after medical school. So just to clarify for listeners, the way medical school works in the United States is you go to high school, you finish high school, you go to undergrad, you generally spend about 4 years in undergrad. You graduate from undergrad and you go straight to medical school. Sometimes. A lot of times, actually, you don't, but whatever. So you get to med school, and med school is 4 years. So you have 4 years of medical school, and then you have residency. Residency is when you start to specialize into what kind of doctor you want to be.
Okay.
And then some people even go further after they finish residency, and they do something called fellowship, which is when you subspecialize even more to get an even more subspecialty. So, you know, so you'll have people who go into like neurosurgery and then go into like a spine fellowship because they want to do spine neurosurgery, you know, or cranial, you know, neurosurgery, that kind of stuff, you know. So, you know, my first rotation was at Baton Rouge General Hospital on surgery. So I don't know what the structure of the podcast is, but essentially my first time shadowing with Dr. Grivenstein was in the OR in surgery. And then my first rotation as a medical student was on surgery in those same ORs. So it's just like, I made this video the morning of my first day on surgery, and it like went bonkers, but it wasn't even intended to go bonkers. It was just like, I had to get it out because I was so full. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was so grateful. So I was like, God, I got to get this out. Like, I'm like shaking, like I got to get this out. And you know,
you were in the moment. You grasped the moment.
yeah, and like I understood. I personally finally was able to take the time to understand just how far God has taken me. So it was like, wow, you could kind of see the whole timeline right there in front of you. Cause I mean, I've lived this. It's not like I'm like hearing about it, like reading a book or reading an article or something like that. Like I'm living this, you know? So it's a whole different ballgame. You know, it's crazy, man. So I did this rotation. I made this video, and then I got approached by this program director at Harvard to do an interview for Vogue magazine to talk about this whole experience of, you know, going back to this hospital as a security guard. And of course, the Vogue article is it's gonna get a lot of attention. And then the Vogue article led to, it was like snowball effect after that. I don't even remember what happened after that. I think like People Magazine, CNN, MSNBC.
Even BBC, the British Broadcasting, it was
Oh
on
yeah,
there
so
too.
BBC. I didn't realize BBC was such a big deal until the BBC article came out, and then like it was like a flood of people. Like it was like a flood of people from Australia, India, you know, Malaysia, all over Africa, you know, Europe. They all just were like, this is amazing. Like, this is amazing. And then, of course, I was still getting this, like, you know, I was getting national attention, but also international attention at the same time, which made for a very busy, like, it's like been busy. Like, my phone is just like constantly dying every day. But, you know, it's also made for some really fun times. I'm here in Baton Rouge, which is like an hour and a half away from New Orleans. And so my wife and my two children are in they're in New Orleans, and I'm here in Baton Rouge. So I come here during the week, and then on weekends I drive back home. And you know, I've been able to spend some time with classmates who I didn't have the opportunity to spend a lot of time with while I was in my first 2 years of medical school, just because of like, I don't know, where we live, what we had going on. It wasn't like on purpose. It was just like kind of how things go. But then like you learn so much about these people, but they also learn so much about you, you know, and it's just like it's been really cool and at the same time really fun. Cause like, so my roommate was able to be in that NBC article and he was able to be in Good Morning America. And his mom was like, "You're famous now." So